Welcome back to a Wednesday here on Kobold Press for Kobold Chats. I am so excited to have some fresh faces, some more guest designers, and some more hype around Vault of Magic. For those of you out there in chat who may not know, we are in the middle of an amazing Kickstarter, Vault of Magic, which is going to be a giant tome, is what I'm calling it. It's going to be a tome. It's a giant tome full of 5e compatible magic items. Some from the history of Kobold Press, dug out from the bowels of the nostalgia and pulled forth and given a new face for 5e, and then a lot of fresh items, new things, stuff that's being created just for you and just for this book. So I imagine that Future Dot is going to hook you up with a link in chat, so make sure to click it there if you'd like to go check out the Kickstarter. If you haven't supported already, help us out. Let's make the book even better. We've already reached a ton of stretch goals. And I believe last night when I checked it, we had just bridged the $260,000 mark. We are beating a ton of Kobold Press goals with this one. So thank you for everybody that has already supported us. Now that I'm done with announcements, I am very, very excited to introduce our guest for the day, Daniel Kwan. Welcome in. I'm so excited
Thank you
to
for
get to
having
sit
me.
down, and have a chat. And first off, thank you for coming to be
You're
involved
welcome.
in our Vault of Magic, for sharing your talents and your creative ideas with us.
Oh, thank you, and you're welcome. I mean, first of all, congrats to the Kobold team for the Kickstarter. It's doing great.
Yeah, it really is. I joke, but it's actually true. I have very little to do with that. I'm like the hype child, and they're doing all of the hard work, so I just try to keep them hyped and keep all y'all hyped.
Morale is super important.
Yep.
Morale is super important.
But, I credit that almost to everybody that's had anything to do with this, including all of our incredible guest designers who have, like I said, kind of brought these magic items in. And thanks to all of your, hard work and your creative designs, I think people are really stoked about this book.
That makes me very happy.
Yeah, so, that being said, tell us who you are when, we're not being hyped children for Vault of Magic.
Yeah. My name is Daniel Kwan. I'm I wear many hats. I am the Chief Creative Officer of Asians Represent. We're a Gold Emmy winning podcast and stream. We talk about, Asian issues in media and TTRPGs. We do actual plays. We do it all. So I do that. I'm a freelance, writer, game designer, and cultural consultant. I recently was one of the authors on Candlekeep Mysteries, D&D 5e anthology that's coming out. I'm one of the contributing designers to the Avatar: The Last Airbender RPG. And I've done a lot of other indie stuff. I self-published a game called Ross Rifles, which is a World War I powered by the Apocalypse hack, and done a lot of other things.
That's amazing. Yeah, we should sit down and share stories. It sounds like we do a lot of the same a lot of things. Yeah.
a lot of things. Yeah. I work in tech during the day and TTRPGs at night and during
That's
breaks.
Awesome. Yeah. Any extra breathing time is filled with rolling dice. That's
exactly
awesome.
that.
That's very awesome. Was this the first time you've had a chance then to work with Kobold Press?
Yes. I have, I've watched Kobold succeed and do some cool things. And I'll say this, you folks have reached out to me a couple of times and it just hadn't worked out. The last time y'all reached out to me, I was like, I'm working on a thing. I can't talk about it. It's Candlekeep Mysteries. And then after Candlekeep Mysteries came out, y'all reached out again and I was like, okay, I have time. I can do it this time.
Nice.
But
well,
yeah, this is the first time I've got
then.
it's actually worked out. I'm happy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then that's very, very exciting. So I think we've hyped it up to the point where we have to give we have to spill the beans, as I like to say here. And you have to tell everybody, what magic item have you created to bring into Vault of Magic for us?
Yeah. So the item I wrote is called the Wolf Brush. And it is a pole arm that is very unique to Chinese culture.
Oh.
So the Wolf Brush is actually based on a real life weapon. I have made it more sturdy and more useful for D&D. But it was a weapon that was talked about in a 16th century book called The New Treatise on Military Efficiency. And it is essentially a defensive weapon that it's a long polearm and it's covered in these like little branches with tiny little barbs on it. And it said that, they could put poison on it and stuff like that. And when I was doing research on it, because I was going to introduce it into my one of our games that we're doing on Asians Represent, I was like, watching videos of some replicas being in use. And I was like, I don't really like that. I want to make something that's more epic. And so when y'all got in touch with me, I was like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity to do something. And so first of all, how much should I talk about? I don't want to spoil.
Okay, so I've been given permission to entirely spoil y'all's item.
Oh,
so you
fantastic.
can talk about your item in totality.
Oh, fantastic. So it's like, the idea, and I know the audience is going to be able to see the art. The idea is that the wolf brush is like this defensive pole arm, and you hold it out in front of you to defend your allies, like you're holding like the corridor of a dungeon, or you're in the midst of a battle, or you're falling back against a creature. And in terms of mechanics, the wolf brush actually gives you resistance to piercing, since it's covered in these like magical large spearheads. So instead of tiny little barbs, I had the idea of basically making this a legacy weapon. And by legacy weapon, I mean narratively. Each individual barb on the wolf's brush is actually the spear or a weapon from this general's fallen comrades. And this general has actually forged this weapon using like the swords, the broken swords, the spears, the daggers of his friends.
I have literal goosebumps. I love that so much. So I'm such a war nerd. So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I'm super war nerd, and I can already tell.
Oh yeah, we got to keep talking.
I was like, we may have to have another conversation off camera, because I can already just tell that you're a super war. I love that. That is
kind of like the idea of like Tolkien writing the Fellowship of the Ring about all of his friends that he lost in World War I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool. And man, you want to talk about a big bad guy. What an epic story for like a turned general who is like mourning the loss of his entire
or maybe not even a bad guy, right?
Because he could also be a good guy.
Well, but what if the players are hired by, a lord to actually hunt down this rogue general? This rogue general is wielding this weapon, but then, in conversations and role playing, right? They're like, wait, maybe we're working for the bad guy. So that's kind of my intention.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is you're writing the next module. It's going to involve this thing. It's totally going to be this story.
Whoa, Kobold Press, get in touch. Let's do this.
I love that. That's very cool.
But yeah, so the idea was that this is a legacy weapon, and it's a weapon that you could take into any adventure as not only like a cool thing with cool abilities, but also something that you could use to drive story. Because I think that's where magic items are really useful, right?
So that I was going to say, that's actually my next question is like, how do you develop magic items? Obviously, you're drawing from like actual historical like weaponry and culture, but I'm very interested in like how do you build these magical items? Is it always about story, or do you kind of like ebb and flow depending on what you're GMing?
For me, it's always about story. And I know I didn't answer the full question of what does this item do, so I'll get back to that.
I guess that's true.
That's okay. In terms of designing magic items, I'm always about story. But I want to make sure that it looks cool. So for this item has the ability, it has 10 charges. You can actually expend a charge or more to use Hail of Thorns, the spell. And the more charges you expend, the greater the spell slot level, right, that you're expending. Or you can expend 5 charges to create a Wall of Thorns. So the idea is like you're shooting forward, you're thrusting forward with the weapon, and it shoots out thorns, or
it's almost it's a truly defensive weapon.
It's a truly defensive weapon,
which is really interesting because most of the time weapons are offensive. That's very cool.
And the idea is that, like when I was watching people like fight with spears in martial arts, they would like wave it to the side like this, and so that would be the motion that you would do to basically draw out this wall of thorns. And then
that's cool.
In my idea, so basically, when you're writing magic items, you're like very succinct about what it does mechanically. So I wrote that it regains a D8 expended slots at dawn. But what that means is that in my head, and this is what I plan on doing when I include this in our Dungeons and Asians actual play, is that you plant this weapon in the ground, and at dawn when the sun shines, it is literally helping it regrow like a plant.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
So to go back to your question, like what do I like what is my process when I'm designing a magic item? I almost think about how it would look narratively first. So it's like, oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So we had a session where our players were in this small town, and we had like a food episode before where it's just like, we're just going to chill in hot springs and eat food and talk about noodles and stuff. And like, I'm cool with that. And then bandits came into town, and it's just like, hey, yo, am I allowed to swear on this?
You can totally swear.
Okay. They were like, hey, yo, you fucked up some of our guys. Like, we demand tribute. Demand tribute. And the players were like, no, we're gonna take care of this. So they go to this temple to take out these bandits. And one of the bandits was called the Swallow. And he had his entire he wears this sort of studded leather armor, but it's kind of plated with scales. But these scales, and I say studded leather armor plated with scales because these scales look like feathers. And he was actually plucking them off of his studded leather armor to throw as knives. But during the combat, he actually, one of his arms was injured by a player. And so he actually brushed his hand over his remaining knives, and they actually formed a wing on his arm that he used as a shield and as a melee weapon. And then my players immediately killed him with a huge spell.
Right, of course.
but in my mind, I was like, oh, what if I want a character who can throw like a shitload of knives, and then I also want a character that can like have this like cool wing thing, and so I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to do this. And like, this is totally inspired by Zaya from League of Legends.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You like throw feathers and recall them. Except this one was like this big metal, like literal wing that he would hold as like a shield.
That is super duper cool.
And like, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to think about mechanics because I want it to look cool. And then I'll think of mechanics later if it's necessary.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I'm like, what is the cool? Yeah, how can I make it look cool? And then I'll make mechanics happen.
Yeah, that was
cool.
Exactly. And like when I was writing the Wolf Fresh, I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. Here's the story. This is what it'll do. And it was like mechanics. I was like, oh, shit.
It's what I'm thinking about this item. Druid has always been my favorite class, and druids oftentimes don't get as many cool weapons because they usually either get like they can use staves, they can use wands, they can use weapons, but like rarely are there weapons that I feel like might be a little bit druid centric. And this is very interesting because both the spells that are used or that this like activates are druid spells. And this idea of it needing to heal in dawn light and like grow back is a very kind of cycle of life, like druid thing. And I just love this weapon as a druid weapon because it is defensive, it's not offensive, and it's a weapon that I think like a druid could totally rock.
Oh yeah,
just such a cool item.
So what I would love to do. Okay, so. This breaks a lot of rules, but D&D's all about breaking the rules.
Yeah, break the rules. I tell them here all the time, I am here to break the rules.
So like first thing I realized, like this is a pole arm, so this could be any weapon. So if you've got a druid in your group who's wielding like maybe like a quarterstaff, they're like I don't want anything. Look, make this a quarterstaff, and instead, this will literally grow out of a branch or something.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? And it doesn't have to be spearheads or sword tips. This could literally, be really neat if to make this a druidic weapon. It's literally a central type of wood, and then each of the branches are made of a different kind of wood.
Oh.
From all these different druid circles. So you have like the birch and the different kinds of bark and things like that. And then what I would do if I was the GM and my player they were in this epic battle and they've run out of charges. What I would love to see is a druid. You plant it right in the dirt and you cast daylight.
Oh yes, raise the sun. Oh my gosh, now see,
and then it heals.
Oh, that's so epic. I love that that's so
Yeah.
much.
See,
My
that's
little
what I
demon
would.
heart is like, oh.
I'm taking that. I'm using that for my.
I was about to say, you better take it and run, or
I
I'm
was
gonna
just
use it
thinking
for
about that. I was
mine.
like, wait, I should use that. I'm going to use that.
So, okay, so obviously you're drawing a lot. You're looking at it from a story and from the cool, the rule of cool,
Rule of cool.
rule of cool to adding mechanics kind of afterwards to it, which I think is really really neat. And obviously, you love to play games. That's very evident. You love to tell story. That's also very, very evident. So I imagine that you have probably been inspired or received a magic item in a game or sometime of your past that really just rocked your world. What's that magic item? What was the like? It shook me.
I from the first D&D adventure I ever played.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like 21 years ago. Almost 21 years ago.
Okay, well now I have to hear this story.
So I actually learned how to play D&D at a museum.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so I'm based in Toronto, and there's
Okay.
a museum called the Royal Ontario Museum, and it's the largest cultural and natural history museum in North America, in Canada, not North America, in Canada. And they had a Dungeons and Dragons like summer camp and things like that. And you would go learn about history and all that and play D&D. And my GM, who was also the instructor of the entire program, was a local Toronto comic book artist. And he had this adventure, and it was called The Quest for the Crystal Caves. And at the end of the adventure, we had traveled to these caves, and my elven fighter, Aramel, basically, we are all gifted these crystalline weapons. And I thought it was really cool because when you attacked with them, it was just a custom magic item, right? When you attacked with them, you would roll a D100, and that was how much damage it would do. And for me being a youngster, it was like, oh, that's so cool.
A D100,
yeah. And I was like, and I was an archer, so it was like every time I fired a crystal arrow, it'd be like shatters into D100 damage, and it was so neat.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and so that was the first of all, that was the first magic item I ever got as a D&D character, and it's still one of my favorites over 2 decades later.
That's, I think that says a lot about both your GM, but also just kind of how impactful like a really well written item can be. And again, mechanics were clearly part of it because they thought, let's have him roll a D100, but that also is a lot of fun. Like rolling a D100 is something you don't get to do very often, so there's almost like play written into use of the magic item, which has been this really interesting conversation actually that has popped up over interview after interview that I've done, where there's nothing worse as a GM than like making all these magic items, giving them to your players, and then they hoard them. Because they're afraid to use them, or like the ones that have like limited time use.
You mean like in the hit video game Breath of the Wild, where item degradation literally prevents you from using the items you like unless you know how to farm them?
Like it just, it's one of those things, and then they hoard them and then they never get used. And so I think that's detrimental to both the GM and the player who's kind of trying to tell the story. And so I think there's something really neat about saying it doesn't have to have these extreme mechanics. Just roll a D100 because that's fun, and I just want to see you shoot a crystal arrow and watch it explode. Which is, I think really,
I wrote a magic item recently, and I called it the Blink Toad, and it was and so I kind of was on this like thing where I was like, I'm just gonna write weird magic. So I have a random word generator, and so it's from this other creator, and sorry, I was gonna try to get the link for you, but it's this other creator called Miscast. So Miscast Minis on YouTube. And he created this thing called Arcane Ugly. And it's on his Patreon, Miscast Terrain. And he has this word generator. And he was using it as like basically a way to kind of get him creatively engaged every day. And so like I'm one of his patrons, and I downloaded it and I tried it out. And I created 2 magic items from it. One was the Noxious Shelf. And so I was like, okay, and it generates like 5 words at a time. So I was like, Noxious Shelf, that's dope. And in my head, the Noxious Shelf was an item where it's been in this inn for as long as the people of the town can remember. But it sat at the center of the inn, and they've built the inn around it and renovated around it because anything that touches the shelf will decompose. And so, you can't use it for storage, and you can't do it for anything. And the innkeeper just hates that it's there and wants it gone. And so I posted this on my Patreon, and one of my patrons was like, you know what? This would be a great way to make mulch. And I was like, yes.
Gosh. What a great practical use for that.
Yeah, so like here's a story. There's a story plug right there, and the local lord or a local agriculturals guild has seen this as a way to make mulch very fast. And so they've hired the players to somehow figure out a way to remove the Noxious Shelf.
Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous.
And then the most recent one I made was the Blink Toad, and it's also in this inn, and it's a pet that the owner keeps, and it's inside this glass container. And whenever it blinks, it teleports to that location, short distances. But the thing is, this toad is easily distracted, like me. And so it's you're like, you want to go, and the toad's like, what's that? Blink. And it just go everywhere. But like, I love to create magic items that are just kooky.
Yeah. I really, really adore that. We've had some people that are like, I really like to create practical magical items or magical items out of everyday objects. I love the kookiness of your magical items. I really love the kind of chaotic edge that they have, which is really, really neat. So this magical item you've made, what do you think would be the most obscure use you could think of for it? Like almost non-combative or defensive in any way. What's an obscure use for it?
Oh, 100% if you wanted to use it for profit. So I said Wall of Thorns and Hail of Thorns, right?
Right.
So like, okay, let's think about Hail of Thorns. You're shooting thorns at a thing, right? So if I was the user, I would create like a rock climbing wall with it. Instead of rock holds, there are thorns that are embedded into rocks. So when you just, right? So there's one. Wall of Thorns. What it says Wall of Thorns is like thorny vines, right? But that doesn't mean it can't be roses. So it's like, I want to create a rose garden, fields of roses.
Wow.
And then it's just like, okay, now we're going to go sell roses.
You're the greatest con man that I've interviewed for Vault of Magic. You're gonna have every business. Yeah, put that on your.
I like to think that I'm the D&D entrepreneur. I'm always trying to make a buck.
Make a business. I love the instant like rock wall, the instant rock climbing gym.
Yeah, or I mean, it doesn't have to be a gym. It could be like, hey, we need to scale this surface. But I like the idea. But I like the idea of like maybe there's this like maybe there's this like strange rock feature at the center of a town, and the townsfolk don't know what to do with it. So it's like, I'm gonna make this rock wall for people to use.
I love that a lot. All right. So any last minute things you want to share about this item? You did say it came from like an actual like historical weapon.
Yeah.
And those kind of things. We're gonna do something fun here as we kind of wrap up. But any last minute thoughts on it was called the Wolf's Brush.
No, I think that's it. I want to make sure that if folks are using it, I want to make sure that you use it creatively. You don't take what I wrote literally, and like this interview, you take extreme liberties with this item.
If you walk away from this interview with one thing, everybody.
Yeah, and I think this interview, we've been talking for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. This interview this is who I am. I like to make things weird. I like to make things different, but I also like to make things, story first.
Yeah.
Don't take what I wrote literally, make exceptions for your players. And adjust this weapon to meet certain player needs. So if a player can't wield a certain weapon, we'll change it.
Yeah.
So don't take what I wrote literally. Because I want to make sure everybody could use this weapon. I want to see, druids using it. Because you're right, druids don't get a lot of weapons, and that was kind of the intention. They just don't.
Yeah, it's just so neat. And again, to be able to say, well, it could easily be a quarterstaff, right? Or maybe it could be built like if glaive is really like their thing. Who says that you can't have some kind of glaive build around it? I just think that's really I
also had the idea of it being like, have you ever played Monster Hunter?
Mm-hmm.
So like, Monster, the weapons are ridiculously big. Like, size this thing up, make it look huge. right?
Make your Final Fantasy weapon.
Yeah, make your Final Fantasy weapon.
Giant
like,
shoulder.
or maybe it was like, I use great swords, and you grab this thing, and it's like it's got great sword blades on it, and it's just why not?
God, that's gnarly and kind of metal, actually, too. What a great weapon for a metal campaign.
Or what if like a little like a giant was using it, and it's like a sword for a giant.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, like to give it to other people, include it in your story. So don't just use it as a combat item. Make it a part of your story, or make it a part of a character's journey.
Yeah. All right. Well, now, as we come to the end of our little interview journey, we're gonna do what I've been doing with all of our guests, which is a little bit of like a speed question round. I'm gonna ask you a question rather quickly, and you just kind of tell me the first answer that comes to your mind.
Okay.
There is no right or wrong. You don't get to win, and the points don't matter.
Sweet. So, that's how I like it.
Okay. Perfect. All right. What is your favorite trap?
Oh. You know what? I love the classic arrow trap because there's so much you can do with it. Yeah. Because the classic arrow trap makes me think of Home Alone.
I imagine you've pulled much inspiration from that movie. You're quirky.
Oh, in my entire life. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. If you could gift your magical item to any one person, who would you gift it to?
A real person?
A real person.
Oh, Keanu Reeves.
That's not what I expected you to say, but that's a fantastic answer.
Because I want to see John Wick riding a horse or a motorcycle with this thing.
Just over his shoulder, like, man. That's badass.
Like
so
in John
badass.
Wick 2.
I love it. Okay, and...
Oh, no, wait, this is John Wick 3. John Wick 3.
John Wick 3, you're right. Okay. Yeah. You seem to be a bit of a weapons person, so I think I'm going to ask you this one. If you could be any weapon, any sentient weapon, what weapon would you be?
Okay, so from my own culture, it would be a Janma Dao. It's a horse chopping saber. It's like a big two-handed broadsword that they used in the Han Dynasty to literally chop horse legs from cavalry.
Wow. Oh, because they would have been on foot. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for my own culture, it would be that. From other cultures, in the Islamic world, they actually had grenades. So in my old career, I used to be an archaeologist and a researcher at the museum that I talked about earlier.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And my mentor there was actually a weapons expert.
It's amazing. We have got to have another cup of coffee, not on camera.
If people are interested in learning about him, Robert B.J. Mason on Twitter.
Okay.
Robert Mason is a researcher. My actual academic specialty was ceramics. Not as exciting. Oh. But Rob and I would talk about weapons a lot, and his office was full of them. So I grew up, meeting him at the museum, and I've known him for as long as I've actually been playing D&D. So I met him as a kid, and then I worked for him as an adult. But he had this a replica of a grenade from the Islamic world, a ceramic grenade that was actually punctured so that it would fragment.
Oh man,
people don't think about this stuff in D&D.
No, I'm already inspired. I'm like, okay, how can I use this? I love this idea of a ceramic grenade. That's something that's really, really interesting. And
how would you make a grenade in D&D, right? What would be the easiest way to do it, right? You could cast it, but how do you ensure that it would fragment and
it would actually...
Yeah, so you could make it out of clay.
Yeah, the shrapnel would be clay.
Or just imagine the visuals of the players show up to a town and they're renowned for their pottery, but all of a sudden they're making all these little things, and it's like, what the heck are these? And the townspeople are like, we've got a problem. The government has basically ordered us to stop making art, and we're making weapons.
Oh,
something like that.
My heart. I have to be in on that campaign because. Yeah, wow. Actually, it's so funny. That reminds me of a World War II campaign I'm playing in right now where we're...
Oh, sweet.
I know. Okay.
People have to make guns and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. We're part of the French Resistance, and the SOE, which has been... Because so you said something earlier. I've been reading... So they just released the SOE training manuals to the general public, so I've been reading through the SOE training manuals for SOE agents, and it's very enlightening. Okay, that's way off topic. But thank you so much for coming and just sharing space with me and talking about your item, which I think is extraordinary and really, really cool. I hope all of you in chat really enjoyed it. Remember, you can get your hands on Vault of Magic right now. The Kickstarter is up through the 15th of March, so make sure that you get on that. There will be a link in chat because Future Dot's got my back. And let's see. And a big announcement. We are planning a birthday bash for Kobold Press. Kobold Press is turning 15 years old, y'all. We're in full teenage angst right now. And we're going to be celebrating March 20th with an extended live stream here on our Twitch channel. So make sure that you mark your calendars. We'll have a lot more information about what you can expect and what we're going to be doing. Go ahead and start buying your kazoos. We're going to have a giant kazoo celebration at the end. So yeah, mark your calendars, and we're going to have another interview coming up right after this one, so stick around. I've got a short video for you, and we'll keep talking about Vault of Magic here in just a second. We'll see you guys in just a minute.
Yay.
You remind me of the vault.
What vault?
The vault with the magic.
What magic?
The magical items.
Which one?
These ones.
Oh.
You remind me of the vault. I saw this new book in a Kickstarter campaign from Kobold Press. It's called The Vault of Magic in print and PDF. I had to pledge all kinds of magic stuff inside.
Scrolls and tomes,
Weapons and cloaks.
potions and armor.
The book is called Vault Magic Vault Magic Vault Magic Vault Magic
Vault of
Vault
magic for mighty.
Vault Magic Vault Magic Vault Magic Vault Magic Vault of Magic for 5e. Pledge today.
For your copy.
Pledge on Kickstarter today for your copy of Vault of Magic, a book of more than 800 magic items and rolling tables compatible with 5th edition D&D. It's available in both print and digital form, including Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, and the brand new 5e platform, Shard. They have a squad of amazing guest writers, including Luke Gygax, Todd Kenrick, and Deborah Ann Wall. I ask for so little. Just visit the link in the description. It's a crystal, nothing more. But if you turn it this way and look into it, it will show you 800 plus magic items for 5th edition D&D. Pledge on Kickstarter, Sarah! Pledge on Kickstarter before it's too late. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry. I just love Labyrinth so much.
There we are. Hey, everybody. I have come to you from the past to the future, which technically makes it the present. We're like here for real, though. Not a recording, actually live. I know I'm blowing your mind. Time is crazy. But I'm glad that you stuck with us. If you've just joined us, welcome in to Kobold Chats. We spend our Wednesday afternoons talking all things Kobold Press. And right now we're on a bit of a hype train around our current Kickstarter. And I've got somebody here that can super help hype train it up. Because Victoria's been like super duper involved, and you're putting an item in it, so we get kind of the best of both worlds today. Yeah. So just in case people don't know who you are, tell us, what you're up to.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I am the social media and customer service manager for Kobold Press. But I am also the DM for the Broadswords. We're an all-women and non-binary actual play podcast. I have produced podcasting events for Wizards of the Coast, as well as was a consulting producer for D&D Live, The Descent, last year. Yeah, that's me. Hi.
Hi. I was lucky enough to get to participate in some of those events thanks to Victoria, so I greatly appreciate that. And now here we are. It's like our paths are ever crossing. So the big hype, of course, is this Vault of Magic. Where are we at? We got to be close. We're super close.
We're super close to, let me bring it up, but we're super close to hitting $300,000.
What?
And it's kind of, we're over the moon about this. It's pretty exciting. Yeah, let's see. I'm in Canada, so it's in Canadian funds. We are so close. We're just like 700 and odd change
only
dollars
$700 away. That's a calling, y'all, in chat. It's a calling. We are live. We're pulling out $300,000. We're super, 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 super close. So if you haven't got your copy, or if you haven't actually pledged yet, you can do that right now over on Kickstarter. I'm going to drop a link in chat. And that'll take you, so you can just learn more about it, because basically we're like unlocking stretch goals left and right. We've got all these guest designers coming in. Wow.
Yeah. And we just announced more guest designers yesterday.
Oh, there you go.
So we have 20 guest designers, and it's pretty exciting.
Wow. Okay.
And
I didn't realize it was that
be
many.
one
I
of
work for
them.
this company. No, yeah, and you do get to be one of them. You are so right. That's so funny. I didn't realize we had that many. Wow, 20.
20. That's a lot of guest
Crazy.
designers.
That
And some
is.
really wonderful people.
Agreed. If you missed before everybody, we've been doing this kind of over the weeks. You can actually check them out over on our YouTube. If you want to check out some of our interviews with these 20-odd guest designers. We haven't got through them all, but we're doing our best here. So you can go check that out. And then if you missed the earlier part of today, that will also become available. And we had a great interview with Daniel Kwan. So let's take a second. Here, you do a lot of things. Clearly, you wear the many hats. You wear the many hats. But this time, you designed an item. But this is interesting because you didn't actually design this item specifically for the Vault of Magic book. This was an item that came out of something very personal. So why don't you tell us about your item and a little bit about kind of its origin?
Okay, this is actually an item from the Broadswords, and that I'm just really, because when they said, hey, do you want to do a magic item, I thought, I want it to be a Broadswords item, just because I have put 3 years, this campaign for the Broadswords has been going on for 3 years, and so, you put so much effort into it. And also, this item was kind of the MacGuffin of the entire second season. So it's the thing that was driving the plot and driving the characters on. And it will be playing a major role in the big finale. So I'm really excited. So what I made was the Bagpipes of Battle.
Awesome.
They're just Bagpipes of Battle. They don't have like a big, grand, fancy name. I actually was channeling my inner Klingon when I came up with that. It was Bagpipes of Battle.
Yeah, I was about to say you have to have a gruff voice to say it.
Yeah. Because I've been playing a lot of Star Trek Adventures as well. And we're starting a Klingon campaign. So I've got this thing about me right now. So I went with the Bagpipes of Battle. So what it was is our bard, Keela, one of her bonds is that she lost her precious bagpipes and will do anything she can in her power to get them back.
Okay.
So I was like, well, if this is an important thing to you as a player, I'm going to make these bagpipes something special and be a part of the plot. That is where the Bagpipes of Battle came to be. And how I just really like how bagpipes, I mean, when we think of bagpipes now, we just think very loud music, in pipe and drum bands and stuff like that. But really, they were used in battle, and for a long time, they were even considered to be a weapon of war.
Oh.
So they terrified people because they're god-awful sounds at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when you got an army coming after you with this loud, resounding pipes coming at you with drums, that's terrifying. So that's I wanted they are a weapon of war, and they were a weapon of war until the 90s, until someone played them in Hampstead Heath in London, and there's an old Victorian law in Hampstead Heath that says that you cannot play an instrument in the heath. And so when he was brought to court because saying you can't play an instrument in Hampstead Heath, he said, well, it's not an instrument, it's a weapon of war legally. And so they rescinded that it's a weapon of war and said it's an instrument in the 90s.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is a really fascinating story because I think, well, first off, let's just talk about a musical instrument being a weapon of war. Like, right? And in this case, it's not I mean, maybe it is because I don't, well, we'll find that out in a second. I don't know what it actually does, like what the stats, the mechanical stats of it are.
Mm-hmm.
But just like drums, like there's something about fear, like instilling the mental concepts of battle, like the way that we play with people mentally on the battlefield, that makes this kind of a defensive weapon. In a way, it makes it a bit defensive, right? So I'm interested. What does it do mechanically?
Well, it inspires your friends. So it does give bardic inspiration, but it gives a D12 of bardic inspiration.
Oh,
so
my
it's
favorite
pretty powerful.
dice that never gets used.
Yeah, so it's more powerful, beefier bardic inspiration.
Okay.
And it also can instill the frightened condition onto your enemies. And that can last for up to 10 rounds, so 1 minute. But the bardic inspiration lasts for 10 minutes, like usual. Yeah.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
it resets
And it
every
resets.
dawn.
Now, do you find that in terms of the way you make magical items, they usually are kind of story based for you as a GM, or do you look to cool anthologies or like big books like this to find magical items?
They are story based. They're very character heavy. I like to find instruments or weapons or whatever, armor, whatever the item is, to match to the character in story wise, because in a lot of instances magic is rare. Magic items are rare, and they're not the sort of thing you can just find at the store. So if I'm going to give a player an instrument, or I keep on saying instrument because I created an instrument, but an item, I want to make sure that it's something that is meaningful to them. So I don't mind going into compendiums like this and finding something really cool that matches up with what their character's backstory or their bond, their ideal, whatever, what have you. I like using bonds and ideals.
Yeah.
And I
Me
like
too,
trying
actually.
those in.
This is a conversation I have a lot about 5e, and one of the things I really actually appreciated about some of the changes that they made. One day we'll have the conversation over here about how I hated that they dropped Will. That was like a whole, like that was probably the hardest change for me as a GM. But what I loved is ideals and bonds. Like I thought it was a really interesting and significantly more useful than alignment. Like in terms of gameplay and character, I think that ideals and bonds, and what are the other two? The other two listed there on the right,
Flaws
and background, yeah, are all like really they're juicier, and they allow for a lot of other cool stuff. And if you're making magical items for your players, that's where you find the thing that has impact, and drives story. So that's really cool.
Yeah, when I design something, it's designed specifically for them, and it draws from their background, their bonds, and then it also, for as a player, it makes it more exciting.
Oh, for sure, and overcomes that like magic item you give them that nobody ever uses.
Yeah,
right, because if you have something that's really personal and you want to use it, I think that's it. Okay, so obviously this would be a spectacular magical item for the bard. And we all know that bard that needs a set of battle bagpipes. So we all know that. But what are some more maybe obscure classes or builds that could use something like this? Like somebody mentioned barbarian in chat, which I thought was really interesting. Could you imagine like a battle barbarian that just like wields the biggest set of bagpipes in all of Midgard?
I would love that.
Just like big bagpipes, or like a giant that plays this magical set of bagpipes that's literally too big for the average creature to like pick up. It's just huge, what are some obscure uses for something like this? I think it's really neat item.
Yeah, obscure use, like for classes, or just
I think all of the
strange
above.
ways.
Like, yeah. What is it? What did you say it mechanically does?
It instills fear in your enemies, and it inspires your allies.
Your allies. Okay. Yeah. So definitely, obviously, the charisma build is like, I mean, because that who doesn't want maybe like a sorcerer that uses like a totally like given set of bagpipes. That's kind of interesting, and they only play like kind of broken bagpipe tunes because of their angsty sorcerer ways. We all know that sorcerer too. Like that would be a really weird kind of creature.
I could picture like, I would love to see, because this is one of my favorite classes, but like a grave cleric play them. Because like you could like play a dirge, and like that would be scary.
That would be scary. That
like
would be
you're coming in and it's playing a dirge for your funeral, and you're not dead yet, and you're like, okay.
Well, okay, Mr. Bagpipes. Yeah, for sure. Man, that's really cool. Yeah, there's all kinds of things. Somebody says bagpipes of battle plus the magic carpet. Perfect. Yeah, you got your ride. You just sit and play bagpipes all day. You just ride into battle. I think that's so cool.
That's a really great idea.
Yeah, it is.
That was X Granville. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, and I'm always down, like, I think magic items are interesting because we use spells over and over, but like when you can really nail an interesting use of a magical item, like even as a group, like I think about the way you could use sound from this to like echo through caverns or caves, especially if you have somebody that has what's that kobold spell, or the kobold press spell, bat sense, where it's echolocation based. Right? So you like vibrate the sounds out, right? You send out your bagpipe signal and they can read it back and see what's ahead of you. Or maybe you cause an avalanche. Now that's a great use for a set of bagpipes.
I did play a bard who played bagpipes some years ago. And I would use it and this is where part of it came from, is because I would use it as flavor to give inspiration to people.
Okay.
But my favorite thing to do was to use it to give inspirations to our rogue.
Oh.
Who was trying to stealth. And this isn't going to work because you're being very loud. But I could cause distractions so that our rogue could go around sight unseen, because everyone's paying attention to me, the half orc bagpipe player.
Bagpipe player. This is like, look over here.
No distraction.
Oh, I love this in chat. They say grave cleric named Mr. Baggins. Perfect. Mr. Baggins, the grave cleric. We're drawing ever closer. Check it out. We've already moved up on the Kickstarter goal, y'all. Check it. Well, okay. Yeah. So I love these obscure uses. I like the way you think about character, because some people think of like I like giving magical items to bad guys. So like you get it at the end. Like I'm such a cookie cutter cliche GM in that regard, I think. And so oftentimes I don't often think of like make a magical item specifically for my players and my characters. And it's been really interesting in all these interviews, because I think there are a lot of GMs that share in your process of building these things for your players. And so I think it's kind of special that all of you're fixing them up to become available for all of us in this nice little book. So I love that. It's like a personal touch.
It is. It's fun. I'm excited. I can't wait to open the book and be like, look, it's me.
We'll have to have you back for another chat just so you can actually do it with the book in hand, just like that. Oh, I love that. All right. Well, you said it was built for a campaign. Now, I imagine there's been some pretty spectacular uses of it.
It hasn't been used yet.
Blasphemy!
I know. It was the MacGuffin. It was a thing that they were chasing, and they finally got it, and then the gods took it away. Spoilers for the broadswords. Sorry, y'all.
Wow.
But yeah, it was. So they haven't been able to use it yet. It will definitely
It will be
come to
used.
play.
Yeah.
It will be played. They will be used, but they haven't used them yet.
Yeah,
they've
broadsword
been-
spoilers. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. But it did appear. They did appear. These broadswords, these bagpipes did appear in an episode of Podcast of Waterdeep.
Nice.
And Christopher Perkins made a whole bunch of jokes about him because he was in that episode.
Well, you guys heard it here. There you go.
There's a lot of Chris Perkins jokes about these bagpipes.
Well, okay, so you clearly are really great at making these magical items for your players, but I imagine at some point you've received some pretty cool magical items. Do you have like a favorite magical item you ever received? Or like maybe you didn't receive it, but you saw it in use by another player. Like I love seeing how other people use items.
The favorite item that I received was like full plate mail that I could sneak in.
Oh.
Yeah. That was so nice.
It makes me think of Skyrim, where, you know, when you're wearing that bulky bone armor and you crouch, and you know there's no way that you are quiet, but you're stealthing at like 100. You know what I'm saying? You're like stealthing in this bulky armor. You look like a rock, you know, trying to creep past. But that's really cool. So it overcomes what is a mechanical?
That dex negative.
Yeah, the modifier there. Yeah,
the modifier.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it overcame that. So I was able to, as I was, I was a rogue warlock wearing this plate armor.
I bet nobody, when people meet you, they're like, "Who is she? I don't know. Is she a knight? No. Nope. That's so good. That's really fun. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh!
so
I just
I
thought of
enjoyed
another
that.
great use for the bagpipes.
Oh.
You know, like when your friends get into trouble and you need to get them out really fast, one of my favorite spells is to turn them into mist. Turn them into mist, and you could totally suck your friend up in the bagpipes to keep them safe.
That is an interesting use of bagpipes.
It's not a practical use. Or what a great way to sneak somebody in. You want to talk about a Trojan horse. And then when
Trojan
you get there,
bagpipes.
you're just like, and you just like bagpipe them out into, like, talk about a way to enter initiative.
Yes, surprise round.
I am partial to gaseous form. It's true, B. It's one of my favorite spells. It's underutilized. The things that I have done in games, the way I've tortured my GMs with gaseous form, even amazes myself sometimes. I love it. Yeah, yes, Crit Rich, you're right. It's probably a good thing that I don't have this item on a character in game. You're probably right. All right, well, we're wrapping up here at the top of the hour. Any last things you want to share with us before we do our lightning round?
Ooh, lightning round. No, just check out this Kickstarter. There's fantastic people on it. We've got Deborah Ann Wall, Patrick Rothfuss, Shannon Germain, B. Zelda, Noir, Daniel Kwan, which you saw earlier, Lauren Urban, Adam Bradford, Luke Gygax, and Professor Dungeon Master, and Todd and Megan Kenrick. I'm doing this all off the top of my head,
Amazing.
and I'm trying to remember everyone.
Yeah, we've got well, you said they were up to, and we had some new faces that were announced over on the
Yes.
Kickstarter.
Which I did announce, I did mention some of those people.
Yeah, I thought you picked up Noir and B. I heard
Yes.
that. I see that. There's a B over in in chat too. So here's that link
Flourish,
again.
yeah.
Here's that link again, everybody. If you want to go check that out, you can see we've been slowly creeping our numbers forward towards the $300,000 mark. As I said it changed. Ask. Put it into the universe and make it be chaos magic happening. Boop, boop. Speaking of kazoos, we can't go anywhere till we talk about something, Victoria.
Yes, it's going to be our birthday. So.
It's right. It's going to be our birthday. March 20th, this month, 17 days. We're going to be celebrating right here on this channel with kind of an extended all Sunday celebration.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
No, I'm sorry, Saturday celebration.
Yeah, it's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday.
That's okay. It starts with an S.
I know. Days of the week, who needs them? It's 2021, y'all. Days of the week don't even matter anymore. So yeah, Saturday, March 20th, we'll be here. We're gonna have some actual plays. We're gonna have some really interesting interviews, and I'm poking Wolfgang pretty hard to spill the beans on some really cool talks about the history of Kobold Press and how things got started. So it's going to be a big angsty 15-year-old celebration. We're going to bring our kazoos, so get yours ready. We're going to have a giant kazoo celebration, and we'll count down and celebrate all things Kobold Press, because we've been kicking it for 15 years, and that's a pretty big deal, y'all.
That is. It's exciting, and I'm really excited that I get to be a part of it.
Yeah, me too. So you heard it here. Victoria will be back. I'll be back. You'll be back. March 20th here for our birthday celebrations. And between now and then, you got a lot of cool stuff you can check out that we're actually involved in. We're going to be doing some stuff for GaryCon, which is this weekend. Mm-hmm. If you're looking for some extra stuff, I'm going to be overrunning production for Gen Con Spring Showcase, so you can come check us out. We'll have Southlands right here on the channel Sunday evening. Don't miss out on that. We're rounding up towards the finale of that show. But I can say, oh no, GaryCon's not this weekend. GaryCon's in 3 weekends.
Yes.
3 weekends. I'm sorry,
It's
I got
the
that wrong.
faraway weekend.
The faraway weekend.
I
This
was a
weekend
little
is Gen Con.
confused, but I just went with it.
It was actually the confused look in your eyes, and I was like, I got something wrong. What did I get wrong? I replayed it through my head. So GaryCon is not this weekend. I'm sorry. The Gen Con showcase is the weekend, so I'll be over there. We'll be here Sunday for the Southlands, and then in 3 weekends' time, I believe that's like the 25th, 27th, and 28th. There we go. I got it. The 27th and 28th of this month is GaryCon. And we're actually going to be doing a very special one-shot with the Southlands crew as like a super special after we close the campaign for GaryCon. So you're going to want to definitely check that out. We'll be over there on their channel making that happen. So we've got so many things coming up. More importantly, we're working to get a calendar up that you can add to your calendar. Yeah. So
Very
you don't have to
handy.
be like, when is Kobold Press doing that cool thing? Well, guess what? Dot updates a calendar, and it updates your calendar automatically. It's like I'm your secretary, but not really.
Just for Kobold Press.
Just for Kobold Press, though. And we've got some other neat things coming down the pipeline, so you don't want to miss any of it. Make sure to follow us here on the Twitch channel, as well as our social media of choice, whether you're on Facebook or Twitter. You'll find Victoria there keeping you up to date so that you don't miss a moment of what's going on. We've got newsletters, and if you just can't get enough of us, because y'all know you can't, you can head over to our Patreon, where depending on the tier that you join on a monthly basis, you can get tons of content by our Kobold writers, especially if you're like me and you just hoard stuff because you never know when you're going to need it as a GM. It is such a great Patreon because you just constantly get content. You get new modules, new builds of things. It's a really great thing. So go check it out. There's lots over there. And Victoria might actually be able to talk more about, like, we just released some things.
Yeah, we just released a regular zine and a layers. The layers are the adventure modules, and then the zine is a physical zine that gets sent out that has lore, subclasses. Like, one of my favorites is the Fermentation Druid. It was the Druid zine. Mm-hmm. And because I make my own wines and stuff, so I like fermenting things. So the Fermentation Druid is you get to be a druid who like makes pickles and wine and stuff like that. And
I
it's
love
really
that.
fun.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Just one example of the amazing stuff that One example of the amazing stuff Kobold Press puts out via the Patreon. So if you want to check that out, head over to patreon.com/Kobold Press, and you can find out all the many ways you can just support us some more. Hey, speaking of support, I'm putting it out in the world. Bar just went up again. I'm loving today. I'm feeling good about it. We're going to leave you all on a super positive note. Let's go share our Kobold love somewhere else. Yeah, let's take it over to who's online? Oh, I got to get the front side of Twitch. Y'all give me just a second. Let's go give our love to... speaking of love, I'm very excited. We've got some... our emotes are in works right now, and they'll be available starting on our birthday. It's like a little gift to all of you for being subscribers. So between now and then, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we'll have fresh little kobold. All of them are going to be kobolds. I'm very excited about it. It's going to be so cool. Doesn't look like we have a whole lot of people live right now. Not a surprise. It's the middle of the day. That's all right. I'd say I'd go bombard somebody, but literally nobody's online. How about this? We're going to leave you with your afternoon. We encourage you to go check out our YouTube, see some more stuff by us, and if nothing else, check out Vault of Magic, which we'll be right back here to talk about more of next week. And in that interview, we've got, we got V Muse, and we've got Adam Bradford, and hopefully a third guest that I can't quite announce yet, but hopefully by Sunday I can when we're here for Southland. So
Yeah, and it's a really great guest.
it is a really great guest.
Yeah.
It's a really great guest. I'm very excited. Oh, and let's not forget your Monday nights need a little spicing. You need a little spice in your
Order
Monday
up.
nights? Order up right here.
Order up. No reservations required.
I love it. No reservations required. Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We have Order Up, which is our fun little 5e restaurant game, which is a delight, y'all. It's a true delight.
It's a delight to be a player in it.
It's just so
I'm
it's
having
so
a lot
great.
of fun.
So, thank you all. Many places to check us out. Pick your platform of choice. And if nothing else, we appreciate your eyeballs today and your ears today to celebrate a little bit of Vault of Magic love. We will see you all next week. Same Kobold time, same Kobold channel. Have a good afternoon.